if you have a passion and if you believe in yourself enough and you work hard enough, you can make those dreams come true. And a lot of my Korean teammates, they face that. And one of my close friends, Ji Soyeon, she is one of like the Korean legends. She played at Chelsea, and I think she always believed in herself and she works incredibly hard. So I would just say to not let people tear you down and just to use their hateful words as fuel to your fire and just keep working hard and believe in yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Hamza Islam, and welcome to another episode of Oh My Curry Goodness. On this podcast, I talk to incredible people who are of the Gen Z generation about their story and the experiences that have shaped them into who they are today. I created this podcast because it's very easy to talk about the highlight reels or the destination of a person, but we don't talk as much about the behind the scenes or the journey. And these are some of the things that make us human beings. And so I want to create a podcast where we simply let others simply be known as human beings. So I hope you guys continue to check back each and every week to further emphasize the importance of having these behind the scenes conversations and letting people just be known as human beings. Because while human beings can do incredible things, let's talk about the good and bad experiences that shape them into who they are today. So continue to check back each and every week to learn from incredible people of the Gen Z generation. Now, this week, my guest is Casey Phair, who is a professional soccer player for Angel City FC of the National Women's Soccer League and for the South Korean national team. On July 25th, 2023, Casey became the youngest player to ever feature in a FIFA Women's World Cup at 16 years and 26 days old. I don't exactly know what I was doing at 16 years and 26 days old, but I was probably not doing anything special other than eating curry. But nevertheless, it's always great to connect with a professional soccer player and also, in a broad sense, talk to or connect with someone who is Asian. So, Casey Fair, I know I'm not the same Asian as you, but nevertheless, thank you so much for joining. Oh my curry goodness.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. And I really want to know more about your personal story, but I want to ask you probably the most important question on this podcast because, like I said, I know you are South Korean. I am South Asian. My parents are from Bangladesh, but from a South Asian to South Korean, I noticed that one of the most popular dishes in South Korea is curry. So I want to ask you the most important question. I know you love scoring goals on the field, but off the field, do you love eating curry?
I actually do. I didn't realize that it was a Korean dish. I thought it was like my mom makes it all the time. And then when I go to church with my mom, they have it or they make it all the time. So I do love Korean curry.
Oh my gosh. I can't this right now this feels like if we were playing a soccer game, it feels like we just scored a goal in the first minute. This is like a dream come true. Casey, I know we're just meeting for the first time. My favorite soccer player is Sunil Shetty in Asia because he's Indian and we're usually good at cricket, not soccer. But is it okay if I can say that you're my favorite soccer player to come out of Asia after that answer?
Of course. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope if I ever have the budget, we should do an in-person curry event. We'll also have medical professionals on site because curry is a great dish, but like sometimes your stomach can tell you otherwise. But that's so cool to hear.
Thank you. Yes, for sure. It's really good.
Now, if someone were to tell me, Hamza, you're going to be meeting Casey tomorrow in person, I think my first instinct would be to run away as fast as possible because I think, and I think that there'll be a lot of people that say this because as someone who once wanted to be a professional soccer player, but that dream unfortunately died, um, it's very easy to forget that yes, Casey's a professional soccer player, but more importantly, Casey's a human being. And so sometimes it's so easy to like come up with assumptions because we're like, okay, when we see Casey on the field, we think this is how she is off the field. So I know I'm not a philosophy major and I'm not trying to be too philosophical, but I am curious to know if you were to draw a Venn diagram, which is like Casey Fair, the professional soccer player, and Casey Fair, the human being, how would you differentiate the two? Because I could imagine that if we're at a curry restaurant, I don't think you'd want to be known as a soccer player. I think you just want to be known as a human being who just loves eating curry.
Mhm. I think on the field, I'm definitely more like serious and more mean, kind of. like I've seen on Twitter that like people think I'm really mean when I play soccer, and then some of my mutual friends, like people that I'm friends with and their friends, they think that I'm like this really mean soccer player, and that's just like not true at all. Like I think I'm more laid back as a person than I am on the field, and I just like to hang out with my friends, and I like to laugh a lot and have a lot of fun. So I think that's the main difference between me as an athlete and me as a person. I'm more serious on the field, but then off the field, I'm completely different.
I'm glad you bring that up. And it's interesting because again, it's like unless we don't actually get to have these conversations, then you'll never know. So now I feel like the next time I meet you, I'm not gonna run away. I'll be like, it's so nice to meet you. Now,
Mhm.
here's the thing. I know that you are, I think, correct me if I'm, you just turned 17, but nevertheless, you've had obviously such an incredible journey so far. But I think what makes KC confusing is the sense that like we don't actually understand the relationship you have with soccer. So for a lot of people, and I asked Madison Hammond this when she was on, I'd love to know your perspective because people look at soccer as like a ball, you just kick a ball into a goal, but unless you don't actually again have these conversations, you'll never really know. And I think sometimes we will never fully understand the full story because human beings are just confusing, which I'm not going into, that's too philosophical, but growing up, what would you say you liked the most about soccer that you made you realize you want to do this as a career? Because most people will just be like, yeah, I want to do this for fun. I want to do this as a hobby. But for professional soccer players like you love this game, but you loved it so much to the point where now you're pursuing it as a career.
Mhm. So I think I've always had a passion for soccer, but the one thing that made me want to keep playing it was as a child, I moved a lot when I was growing up. So I was born in Korea, and then I moved to Atlanta, and then I moved to New Hampshire, and then I moved to Tennessee, back to New Hampshire, and then New Jersey, and now LA. So I think growing up, I moved a lot, which can be really hard for people to make friends. And I think when I was younger, I was really introverted, and now I'm not. So I think soccer has really been the one thing in my life that has stayed consistent. No matter where we moved, I was always playing soccer. And I've also found like my greatest, like realist friends while playing soccer. So even when I was moving from state to state, I had soccer, and I would always make such great friends through that. So I think having that as my childhood really made me love soccer even more. And it's part of the reason why I really like soccer and why I play today. And also, I really like to score goals and celebrate with my teammates.
I want to bring up two things you mentioned. So the first thing I really like the how you said you were an introvert when you at first and then you went to an extrovert, and I really love that because as someone who goes to Ohio State, I meet a lot of people that give like one or two word answers, and that frustrates
Mhm.
me. But then I'm meeting you and you're like very like outgoing, so I'm like, wow, like even though you're 17, you're more socially mature than like college students. But what was interesting is I know, like I said, I'm not a professional soccer player, but I still love soccer. So I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and we have our own professional soccer team known as the Columbus Crew.
Mhm.
And I think if you were to ask me like why I wanted to be one, it was because I wanted to play for my hometown team. So even to this day, as a 22-year-old, I sometimes can still act like a child when watching them play because I'm like a huge fan.
Mhm.
So still love the team. If I had the chance, I'd love to be a professional soccer player, but I mean, I'm glad that in a way that they don't really need me because I might make them leave. Um, now, and here's a scary thing. I would never hope this happens, but if Columbus Crew ever plays Angel City in a soccer game, I think that'd be the most stressful game I've watched because then it's like I either support my hometown team or I support a team where one of the players loves Curry. That's gonna be a very stressful game, but I hope that never happens. But
Yeah.
here's a follow-up before we move to the next one, which is that you are a forward right now, but growing up, I saw that you're a center back, and I'm curious to know if someone ever said, Casey, I want you to play center back for one game right now, do you think you can do it?
I think, well, when I was younger, I was for sure a center back only type of person. But now I think it might be kind of hard because I would give up too many fouls, maybe. But I don't know. I would do it, I think. Played center back at a camp before. I don't remember where it was, but I think I could do it, probably. I have my childhood instincts, so might be able to make it happen.
Who knows? We'll see. No, I'm kidding. No, I whatever works for you, right? Because being a it's every position has its own challenges, so it's ultimately up to the player, right? So
Mhm.
that's cool. Now, I know we talked about this in the beginning, but you and I are, on a broad sense, Asian, although I'm from South Asia, you're South Korean, and I think and I don't know much about South Korean culture other than apparently they love curry, but I'm curious to know, growing up, did you ever have to worry about that common Asian stereotype? Otherwise, I call it the Fantastic Four, which is science, technology, engineering, math. I know that, and I read somewhere that you grew up with families that were supporting you throughout throughout the soccer journey. But did you ever have anyone growing up that was telling you like, Casey, this is nice, but you got to have the more, I guess, quote unquote, traditional route?
I think I'm really privileged to say that my whole entire family has supported me throughout my whole soccer career. I think it was more me that wasn't all about soccer. So I do have some of the Asian like I played piano growing up. I did taekwondo growing up. I did art class growing up, and I would read a lot. I loved school before I started getting serious about soccer, but I think school has always been another big thing with me and my family because there was always like, what if soccer doesn't work out? So while my family always supported me with whatever career I wanted to do, which is soccer, I also worked really hard in school. So I really wanted to be a chemical engineer or a anesthesiologist. And so I went to private school in New Jersey, which is like I went to Pingree, which is a very smart school. So I think not only was like my family very much supported me in soccer, but I also wanted more for myself other than soccer in case soccer didn't work out. So I was very school oriented as well.
Do you? I know, like, and the crazy thing about soccer is that it's only for a certain period of time. Like, I can't imagine, like, I'm gonna feel old when I say this, but like a 50-year-old Casey is gonna be a professional athlete. But when you do, I know there's so much time left, but like, if you ever were to walk away from the game, do you ever see yourself being a chemical engineer and anesthesiologist, or do you feel like because of now that you're starting this soccer career and here you are playing in a Women's World Cup and obviously now playing for Angel City FC, do you feel like you want to visit that, or do you feel like it's more like I want to stick more into soccer? Obviously, it's too early to tell, but because you said that, I am curious.
I think I definitely would not be an anesthesiologist or any medical fields just because of how much school and how much time it takes. But I think for sure, like I still do online school now, and my parents still really care about me getting a good education. So I think once I graduate high school, I definitely will enroll in some sort of college so that I can get that further education. And then, yeah, I think after soccer, I really want to maybe visit chemical engineering just because it's actually a lot of fun. It's more fun than I ever thought it would be. And also, I really enjoy math. Now doing online school, it's one of the easiest things to learn online. So I think I definitely see myself revisiting that type of career when I'm done with soccer.
That's really interesting. I will tell you this. I wanted to do psychology growing up. Well, part of me wanted to do psychology during my senior year of high school. I'm 22 now because I want to know more about what it's like to be a human being, which obviously you can tell because I'm doing a podcast about personal stories. But like the only reason why I didn't do psychology is because I thought you had to overcome your fears, and I have a horrible fear of spiders, which ironic because I love Spider-Man. So like
Mhm.
it's really weird. But just to spoil the party, I'm a computer science major, so I kind of fit the Asian stereotype.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to love it, but I'm not gonna be too geeky about this, but like it took me a while to love it, but now I like it. But also I still like learning about people's stories, just as long as I
Mhm.
don't have to see spiders for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Um, Now, here's one thing, because I know that South Korea and Bangladesh are two different countries, and I know that you've been able to play against different countries while playing for South Korea. And I know that I think forget the traditional route when it comes to, I guess, the Asian stereotype. There's also like gender stereotype. So, for example, I think especially in South Asia, where it's like, okay, we'd love to see people playing sports, but we also want you being in the classroom. But then when it comes to gender, it's more like, okay, men are more likely to do this than women. And again, I don't know much about what it's like in South Korea, but there are different parts of Asia where women want to be a professional soccer player or professional soccer players, but because of what they've been told, they feel like they can't do it. So, to I guess like the Indian Casey Fair, the Bengali Casey Fair, the Vietnamese Casey Fair. I'm not talking about like doppelgangers, like the evil, like that one doppelganger movie, not that one. But like to those who want to pursue it but feel like they can't because they're growing up in an Asian background or like those gender stereotypes. Again, I know that you're South Korean, so you can only speak from a South Korean perspective. What advice would you give to Asian or women in Asia if they want to pursue a professional sports career?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because in Korea, gender roles do play a big part in just sports in general. I know the men's soccer team, they're huge because they have great players, but I think in Korea, especially, gender roles play a huge part because women are expected to, I mean, I don't want to be like whatever, but they're expected to cook and like provide for their families, whereas men are more allowed to do kind of whatever they want in a sense. So I think I'm really privileged to have grown up in the US where, I mean, gender roles do exist, but not in close to as large of a scale. So I don't relate as much, but I definitely would say like if you have a passion and if you believe in yourself enough and you work hard enough, you can make those dreams come true. And a lot of my Korean teammates, they face that. And one of my close friends, Ji Soyeon, she is one of like the Korean legends. She played at Chelsea, and I think she always believed in herself and she works incredibly hard. So I would just say to not let people tear you down and just to use their hateful words as fuel to your fire and just keep working hard and believe in yourself.
Yeah, and it's never easy. And I know I'm saying it from like as from a guy's perspective, like it's still challenging, but I also believe that what you say is true in terms of like believing in yourself and don't let anything stop you because it's your life and let other people make their own curry. You make your own curry. Um, I just had to say that. But switching gears to, I want to ask you one question about the Women's World Cup because by the time this episode comes out, it will be the 1 year anniversary of you making your debut at the FIFA World Cup. And here's the thing, I think there's a difference between the idea of something versus actually doing something. So I think every soccer fan's dream is to compete at a FIFA World Cup, but sometimes like it's similar how people say you can always find positives in the negatives. And in weird way, you can find the negatives in the positives. So I want to ask you, and I'm going to break it down into two parts. One is on the field and one is off the field. What were some like, even though it was a dream come true to compete at a FIFA World Cup, what would you say were like some reality checks where you're like, hey, this was fun, but there's always like a but moment. So I'd love to know like the on the field but and like the off the field but.
Yeah, so on the field, I would say the speed is so different from like youth soccer. So in the training camp leading up to the World Cup, I think I threw up after almost every training session just because of how intense the workload was, but also like being young, I wasn't or playing with my own age, I wasn't used to having to run as much. So when you play with older players, I think for me, my biggest advantage was that I was fast and able to run, whereas some of them were more strong or more technically advanced. So I think it was a big reality check for me where I was like, wow, I need to get more fit. Like, I can't throw up after every training session. But yeah, I think the first couple of weeks were really hard for me just in that aspect. But as it went on, it was just so much fun. And I got a lot fitter and a lot more adjusted to that speed. And I think off the field, I really felt the pressure. Like, I would overthink like I'm playing against some of the best players in the world. Like this is scary. So as much as it was like my dream to play against some of the best players, it was really like I felt a lot of pressure and I was really scared. But I think it helped me realize that like I made it to a World Cup, but that shouldn't be my peak. I still have a lot more work to do. So I think it was a reality check, but then also more motivation for me to work harder because yeah, I was like scared and I was under pressure, but it was just and like it motivated me and told me that I needed to work harder and get better. So,
No, I really appreciate you saying that because, again, it goes back to the fact that it's a great experience to compete at a FIFA World Cup, but like there's so many things that, and again, it goes back to that human moment where like you're an athlete, but you're also more than an athlete. I want to bring up a weird, interesting fact because I know the Women's World Cup last year was in Australia and New Zealand, and I was very happy. Like I was texting one of my friends and I said, I was really worried for anyone who's playing in Australia because I have family in Australia and it seems like a great country. But again, as someone who's scared of spiders, I heard that some of the most venomous spiders in the world exist in Australia. So part of me was like, I hope Casey doesn't get bit by a spider because like I don't think she's coming home as Spider Woman.
mhm.
I think she's gonna like have a very difficult time. Um, I don't know. Are you scared of spiders or is that not? If you are, if you aren't, please tell me your advice.
I don't see them as much. I got bit by a spider actually on an away trip with Angel City, and I got like a mark on my arm, and I thought it was like an infection, but it was actually a spider bite. But I don't really think I see spiders enough to have like a huge fear of them, but I definitely will not be like one of those people that will pick them up and be like, "Oh, look." Like I'll say I'm really scared of bugs. So I think my biggest fear are moths, which is really random, but I think they're so creepy and so weird. So I think bugs in general, I'm not loving. It's not my favorite thing. So I guess spiders, I do not like either.
I know you are the youngest to compete in a FIFA Women's World Cup. Do you ever see yourself being the oldest? Now, here's the thing. I did some background research. So I found out that by the 2051 FIFA Women's World Cup, wait, yeah, because you're born in 2007. By the
Uh,
2051 FIFA Women's World Cup, if you were to compete in that, you would be the oldest. Do you feel like that's something you want to chase? I know I feel like I made everyone old by saying 2051, but out of curiosity.
I mean, yeah, that's actually crazy to think about because like I feel like I could like with my age I could play in so many more. And I think, yeah, it is like a goal of mine to play in as many World Cups as I can and really just be with my country and make my country proud the best that I can. And that would be representing them at a FIFA World Cup. So if I'm still fit to play in 2051, I would love to. And I think that is a goal of mine to play as much as I can. But like, how old would I be in 2051?
44 years old.
Okay. I think that's how old my dad is. So that would be interesting. But yeah, for sure I would hope or will work to play in 2051.
Well, here's the thing. So I was doing research. So it said that the oldest female to compete in a FIFA World Cup was at the age of 40. So 2047, you would break, it would be tied, and then
Hmm.
2051, you could make history. But I apologize to anyone listening if I made them feel old. But we got to live in the moment. We got to live in the moment. Um,
I think it would be super full circle. Like I'm the youngest and now the oldest, so
well,
maybe.
here's a fun fact. So you're one of the youngest guests of the Oh My Craziness podcast. Who knows? Maybe like in 2052, you might be one of the oldest. I don't know.
Oh my
We'll see.
gosh.
A couple of questions before I let you go. My God. A couple of questions before I let you go. First one, I want to ask you about Angel City because one of my dreams is to go to an Angel City game, but I also feel like Angel City is one, and I love their atmosphere so much that I feel like I'm like jealous because it feels like a cool party to be a part of, and I'm not a very cool kid because I'm just not a cool kid. But I want to know because soccer players so focus. I mean, from the outside, it's like okay, soccer players only about getting only care about getting results on the field. They don't care about getting results off the field. But then when we get to interact with players, they make it's different in the sense like yeah, we want to win on the field, but we want to develop that relationship off the field. I know one of the things that you said about when you joined Angel City was the Korean community in Los Angeles that played a part in you playing. And I want to know because I asked Madison this, but I want to ask you because every person is different. How important would you say is community environment and culture, not just on the field, but off the field for a professional soccer team?
I think it's super important. Like I trained with a couple other teams, but I think the one thing that really drove me to Angel City was just the environment and the culture that they have. And I think in order to win on the field, you need to have a winning culture, and like you can't win on the field if you don't win off the field. So if your team isn't close and you're not a good, like if you're not all on the same wavelength, I feel like it's really hard to win games like on the field. So I just think the environment at Angel City is so much fun to be in. And I think even with the older players, I can talk to them as if they're my friends because they're just like really great people and really down to earth. So I have so much fun being at training, and some of my closest friends that I've now made are some of the younger players at Angel City, which is also a big factor. Angel City is a really young team, I would say, or more young in the league. So I think that really helped me as a young player really adapt to that pro environment, being like having people going through the same situation as me. And I think our fan base also had we have one of the biggest and best fan bases in the league, which I think really helps us and motivates us because like we want to show out for the fans, and the fans just make it so much more fun to play at our stadium. And my hairdresser actually went to an Angel City game and she said it was like a party. So I think that's so cool. And as this being my first year as a professional, I just think that's like a really cool feeling for me to be able to play and like just be a part of something like Angel City.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. Look, as a Columbus Crew fan, we have a very family-oriented fan base, and I think Angel City has that too. But I think the one thing that Angel
Mhm.
City has that Columbus Crew has is that Angel City likes to party, and so that's I love that.
Mhm.
My last my last question before we wrap up. I know it's very easy for a lot of people to be impressed by others, but very rarely do we get impressed by ourselves. So like it's very easy to say I can't believe someone did this, but we don't ever say I can't we rarely say I can't believe I did this. So tell me an oh my curry goodness moment tell me an oh my curry goodness moment you had where you're like, wow, I can't believe I did this. I know I have talent and I'm really good at stuff, but oh my curry goodness, I couldn't believe I did that.
Yeah, it's like hard for me to talk about myself because I'm like not one of those people that really likes to talk about myself. But I think one of them, like more recently, something I've been really proud of myself is like the big like change and now being a professional. Last year I was just playing club with people my own age and I was like going to school, but now I feel like my life has completely changed. And I feel like that's not an easy change for anybody to really go through. And then especially like at my age, one of my friends going through it also. Like everyone has their own path, but I think I'm really proud of myself for being able to adapt to this change, and I'm really just proud of the way that I carry myself as a now professional every day going to training. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's a
feel like
great.
everyone would expect me to say like playing in the World Cup, but it's I don't know. I just am proud of myself for being able to adapt to this circumstances change. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And again, it's one of those things where unless we don't get to actually have these conversations, you think it's like, oh, Casey competing in a World Cup, but then there's so much more. And so, yeah, that's a great answer. And I think I think it reinforces the importance of the fact that you're not just an athlete, you're a human being. So, Casey, I know you are very busy, but I just want to say thank you so much for joining the podcast. If someone were to ask me what is one thing I took away from this, it's the fact that Casey loves curry. But and oh no, I took so much away, and it was so great to understand and learn more about you. So Casey, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Best of luck with Angel City and everything else, and I hope we get to meet in person, whether it's at a curry restaurant or just meeting you in general.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you guys like what you saw, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at the OMCG Podcast for more information on guests, preview clips, and more. Please continue to support this podcast in the future, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode.